of the student's father when the board members and I embraced the father this afternoon at LeBarnard Children's Hospital. We prayed for better days, and I'm so grateful to know that the student is expected to make a full recovery. At approximately 9 a.m. this morning, our school district became the latest in a far too long line of school systems that have experienced the unspeakable, the unacceptable scourge of gun violence. There are still so many details that are under investigation, and we'll look forward to sharing more in days ahead. We conducted a training for all principals earlier this month to be prepared for a day we hope we would never see, but it happened to us today. Our emergency preparedness plans were developed and perfected and worked today, just like we had practiced. I could not be more proud of the principal here. I could not be more proud of our teachers. I could not be more proud of the parents, and most of all, our precious students. And I'm just so thankful for everyone's efforts. And again, I just want to say a heartfelt thanks to my school board. I had two school board members here, Board Chair McKissick and Board Member Avon. They were here on the front lines with me, talking to parents, talking to students, bringing words of comfort. And I just want to give a special thank you to the pastor here at Metropolitan Baptist Church, Dr. Moore, who's standing with us, and he opened our doors, and we stand in this place of worship and where it takes the community to come together, and it did for our children. And I just want to say our security team, we talk about security, we talk about police, but our security team and law enforcement officials for their immediate and swift response to this incident this morning. Thank you to the Four-Way Grill, who prepared over 75 meals for the faculty. It takes a community to come together in these troubled times. And I just want to thank all community leaders. We had some to come out today. County Commissioner Milton came out, County Commissioner Lowry. We got a call from U.S. Senator Haggerty today. All just wanted to express their support for our school district during this difficult time. But we are moving forward from today. But we can't forget, and we will not forget. Tomorrow, school will be in session at Cummings and at all schools in this great district. MPD has assured our teams that there is no longer a threat following today's incident. We will provide additional supports and resources for our employees and students that would include heightened security on campus, mental health and counselor teams, support services for all employees, family and community engagement specialists, and the student affairs team will be at Cummings tomorrow. Our school should be a place to run to and not run from. The lives of two students and families will forever be impacted by today's incident. Again, I say, gun violence has no place in our schools or communities. We're asking everyone, please put down the guns. Parents, check your students' backpacks before coming to school. Students, if you see something, say something. We have to put the guns down. We should be talking about reimagining 901. We should be talking about our academic agenda, not guns. And we're just so fortunate that the young man is recovering. We're very fortunate. Very fortunate. Because it could have been a different headline. We all are parents here. This work is personal. This work is personal. We got to do whatever we can for our children in Memphis, Shelby County. Everyone must step up, including this superintendent. Everyone, for the sake of our children. And again, I say, literacy is life, not guns. Thank you. So I'm asking Deputy Chief Crow if he wants to make comments.
Thank you, Dr. Ray. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Don Crow with the Memphis Police Department, and I do want to provide you a brief update. And so first and foremost, we also want to thank the community, especially Greater Metropolitan Baptist Church here, but the entire community that opened their doors to help. This is what we've always asked for, and certainly today the community delivered on that cooperation. So we know that when Memphis Police Department received the call, within 2 minutes we had our first officers here on the scene, and they entered the school coordinating a response with Shelby County school officers. In all, we deployed 95 officers to this scene. We deployed officers from Crump Station, which this school is in, also officers from North Main Station, Tillman Station, Airway Station, our COP unit, our K-9 unit, our TAC unit. And together, they all worked the plan that we have trained for, coordinating it with Shelby County school personnel. We cannot praise the administration of this school enough. Every time we had a question, they had an answer. So just a great coordinated response. As the investigation has progressed today, we do have a 13-year-old in custody. He is a student of this school. He is still being investigated, but we do expect to place charges on him later tonight. Detectives from Crump Station, North Main Station, and Tillman Station are the detectives that have been investigating this case, and they have consulted with the District Attorney General's office. And as this investigation concludes later tonight, our student will be charged with criminal attempt first-degree murder. He will be transported to juvenile court. Now, we also have to think, how did a 13-year-old get their hands on a gun, right? It's a question we all want the answer to. I'm not sure we'll ever find the full truth, but certainly it begs of everyone to keep their guns secured so that 13-year-olds cannot get their hands on these guns. So it starts by making sure that they're secured from family members. It starts by making sure guns are not left unattended in motor vehicles. We don't want children getting their hands on guns. We would also remind the community that a program through Crime Stoppers called Trust Pays allows school students to call 528-CASH and report if someone has a gun on school campus, report if there's drugs on a school campus, report if there's criminal activity on a school campus. We want our students to be just as responsible as our adults. So Trust Pays can be called at the regular number, 528-CASH, the Crime Stoppers number, and we will make sure that information gets to the right person. But once again, if a student sees something going on in school, please tell a teacher, tell an administrator, tell an officer in the school, let's all work together. So Dr. Ray, thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you so much. Also, LeBunter Children's Hospital, today, they stepped up. We were out, and they were there with the family, and we're talking about a magnificent job from the time we walked through the doors, how they welcomed the family, and we stood as family. So I have Dr. Gilmore, if you want to say a few words.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Barry Gilmore. I'm the Chief Medical Officer at LeBonter Children's Hospital. I'm also a pediatric emergency medicine physician by training. With this, I'm sorry that I had to join you today in these kind of circumstances with it. Fortunately, as you've heard, our youngster has done well, is recovering at LeBonter through the excellent treatment of our trauma team and at our level 1 pediatric trauma team center. We're one of a handful in the United States that's certified by the American College of Surgeons to provide these levels of care for children. Unfortunately, not only here in Memphis, but throughout the country, we've been facing increasing levels of injuries due to gunshot wounds to children all throughout the last year, and certainly during this pandemic. Memphis and LeBonter is no different. So far this year, we've treated over 100 children with gunshot wounds in this community with that, and we're on pace to exceed the record last year, which was 135. LeBonter stands ready to serve all of these children and the needs that they have and their families and parents with this service. And we work closely with the Shelby County school system along with our Urban and Child Institute to provide support services, ongoing trauma, counseling, and care for those children. Thanks so much.
Thank you. So again, you've often heard me say we have the best school board in the nation. We have an award-winning school board. And I'd like to present our new board chair, Michelle McKissick.
Thank you, Dr. Ray. I just want to speak to all the families out there. I know this was a very terrifying experience, whether you have a child who attends Cummings School or someplace else within Shelby County Schools. We've all really been shell-shocked after the incident, the tragic shooting at Collierville. So this is a time for us to come together as a community and to also especially hold your children close tonight. And as Dr. Gilmore mentioned, they have services at LeBonter to reach out to for counseling. Shelby County Schools also has that service as well. Reach out to your guidance counselors because you may not know how this is impacting a young child. Board member Avant and I had the chance to meet with the family of the shooting victim earlier today, and I can't express the level of graciousness both his mother and father expressed today. And he also has a little brother who attends Cummings School. And Shantae, if you wanted to come and just share a little bit about that, because I think it's, too many times that we can get lost in just the numbers. It was shocking to hear Dr. Gilmore say 100, shooting victims that he's dealt with, children. It's startling. That number should never, ever, ever get comfortable for us. And so we have to look, as a school board, what can we continue to do? When Dr. Ray says, if you see something, say something, we're going to have to address that even more so. And I think as adults, we become used to that. You hear it when you go through the airport at TSA. Unfortunately, we're going to have to express that even more so to our students in our schools.
Hi, Shantae Avant, school board member for District 6, representing this community. It's never the call that you want to get from your superintendent that something such as this has happened. But I do want to take time to thank the principal and her team, our SRO officers, Director Jackson and her team, Reggie Jackson, head of school ops, our family and community engagement. When I say that this community came together, our school community, our South Memphis community, our church community, thank you to Dr. Moore, we all came together because we never, ever want to have this type of violence happen again. So what we now have to be focused on is how we prevent it from happening tomorrow, the next day, or any other day. having a conversation with the parents this afternoon, I think we all just kind of breathed a collective sigh of relief that he is recovering and that he was talking to his dad and that his dad felt good about knowing he is on the road to recovery. That's important. When we get down to the bottom of the situation today, that child is alive and we're impacted because he is alive. But now we have to really work to support our students at Cummings. And as Dr. Ray mentioned, tomorrow we will have supports at the school. We will have supports for our parents and our administrators, but also we'll have supports for our community. That's going to be the important piece moving forward, is how we continue to connect and work together to support our families. Thank you.
Thank you. I can't say enough just how the school executed on the plan. They often hear me say we have to have exquisite execution, and they did that. And I'm so proud of the principal and the team. But also, I'm proud of the nurse that was at the school. I think she shared with the board members and myself how she calmed the young man and how that counselor and this particular nurse, what's the nurse's name? At the
Nurse
school?
Taylor.
Nurse Taylor calmed the young man. They contacted his father. His father so happened to be 3 minutes away from the school. And he came up, and she said that she didn't want to do anything harmful, but she applied pressure to the wound to ensure that the student wouldn't continue to bleed. And the actions and the quick actions by Nurse Taylor, the quick actions from the counselor at the school, the properly planning of the principal, the school operations team, which is headed by Reggie Jackson, the SRO that was in the school who acted quickly to have law enforcement to come up, Director Jackson and Chief Darling's plans and working with our schools around professional development around an active shooter in your school all came together today. All came together. But this is not the plans I want to talk about. I want to talk about lesson plans. I want to talk about literacy. I want to talk about reimagining 901. That's what we should be talking about. Again, I said this earlier. We don't put guns in students' backpacks. We don't sell guns in our school. But we got to stop them from getting in. We got to put the guns down in our community. Literacy is life, not guns. Thank you all.
I'm wondering, could someone explain where this happened on campus? Were there many students who saw it?
So I know it's still an active investigation, and we don't want to get in the way of the Memphis Police Department for carrying out the investigation. We don't want to tamper with that, but I'll ask Director Jackson or either Deputy Chief Crow if they want to speak to that.
So this question we are able to answer. The shooting occurred in a stairwell inside the school. And from the video evidence that we've reviewed, there were no other students around when it occurred in that stairwell.
So there's surveillance video at the school?
Yes, ma'am.
Will the school system be offering counseling as well to other students in other schools as needed?
Well, we do that. Yes, we do that on a daily basis, but of course we have to put more supports at Cummings Elementary School. But when I first became superintendent and with this board, we've talked about social emotional learning since the day one of my superintendency, and the board, speaks to that all the time about mental health, about our students' mental health. And we want to deal with the root causes of an issue, not the symptoms. That's still under investigation. We're still trying to uncover all the details. Of course, today has been a very exciting day, you know, and not exciting in the right way. You know, the principal, we had rain outside, we had to get students on buses, we had to enact our plan, we had to bring students here. I want to, again, thank Pastor Dr. Moore for working with us. And we had to evacuate the building and do all of those things.
Do we know where the child got the gun from and if any adults will face charges?
I asked Memphis Police Department to speak to that.
And did he come with the gun to school?
So all that is still under investigation, and all of that information is going to be released as the court case progresses. It's nothing that we want to discuss today.
Do you know if there was an argument or something between the two students, if they knew each other, the circumstances that would have led up to that?
We do have a real good idea. The investigators have been very thorough, but once again, we think the motive and we think the actions that led up to the shooting are best saved for the court case and not discussed
So
before.
the 13-year-old shooter, is that something, you know, we hear school shootings around the country and the shooters tend to be, or the alleged shooters tend to be old. You have a 13-year-old here. Can you talk about that? Is that something you've heard of before, the relative age, the young age of the alleged shooter?
Well, unfortunately, we have arrested 13-year-olds. Just last weekend, we arrested a 12-year-old for carjacking. So it's why we talk about the community coming together to reduce violent crime.
Specifically, though, in a school shooting. Have you
Yeah.
heard of that?
So it's nothing that I track in my mind. It's certainly nothing that we track, so I couldn't answer that either way.
Dr. Ray, do you plan on having more school resource officers, in Shelby County schools? I know they mentioned having one. And what about metal detectors? You plan on having that be like a regular thing for students going through them every day after this incident? Or what type of increased security measures after something like this?
Great question. I have Director Carolyn Jackson. She can talk to you about metal detection. But I can say it was conducted here today. But schools resource officers, that's a conversation that we're going to continue to have with our school board. But as you know, back in December 2019, you know, we had a discussion about a peace force and really developing our own internal police department, if you will. And we have an ongoing talks. Again, we talk about safety on a daily basis. We monitor and comb the data on a daily basis. We had an active shooter drill at the top of September. I think I sent something to the board to talk about gun violence because this is something we wanted to prevent from happening. But I was looking at in and around our community. Schools are a microcosm of the community. This is a community issue that we must solve together. You've heard me say often, we are stronger together. Again, not pointing fingers at anyone. We all can do more. And I said it, including the superintendent, we all can. So going forward, what are we gonna do differently? So I'm gonna have Chief Director Carolyn Jackson to really speak to metal detection and all of that in schools.
And just one or two more questions and we need to wrap up.
Can you all clarify, did the students participate in that active shooter drill, or was that just Cummings students, they participate in that shooting drill over this month?
Yes, all students participate in the drills that we do within our school system.
Was that just at Cummings, or was that at all middle and high schools?
Throughout our school district, all elementary, middle, and high schools.
About the metal detector, was that today? Did you say they went through a search today?
Schools do metal detector searches at our middle and high schools.
Okay, but this is like elementary, right? So it goes up to like 8th grade?
It's a K through 8.
K through 8? Okay,
Yes.
so like but today, was there a search done today? Like,
Yeah.
Okay, and how was that performed? The students walk through, do you search all the bags? How'd that work? And how'd they miss?
That's really, I don't want to get into a lot of it because that falls back on the investigation that MPD is doing and conducting. So I don't really want to get into that. I can tell you the procedure for metal detector searches. They do go through a metal detector search and The bags are searched as well.
That's everybody, teachers, students.
Correct.
Every day?
Correct.
So I do want to end with our faith-based leader. We're here at his church today, and he's been a tremendous partner, and just wanted to allow him to have a few words, and then Dr. Ray will close us out.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Reverend Dr. Michael L.W. Moore. I'm the senior pastor here at the Metropolitan Baptist Church. And I am not a native Memphian. I arrived with my family in January of 2020, just 3 months before the pandemic shut everything down. Where we chose to live when we came to Memphis was right here on Walker Avenue. We spent over a year in this neighborhood to find out what the needs of the community were. We spent over a year hearing gunshots in our neighborhood at night, looking at some of the plight of our community, thinking about what we can do to make a change. As Dr. Ray has stated, this is not just a problem that is on the shoulders of the school, but it's a problem on the shoulders of all of us. And so the reason why we were able to respond so quickly to Cummings' needs was because we had a prior relationship. Metropolitan has been one of the longest adopters in the history of Cummings School. All they had to do was pick up the phone and make a call and let us know what they needed. And my message to us today is that while we are trying to figure out what has happened, what we also need to do is try to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Our students, our families, our communities, especially in South Memphis, need people to step up. And I'm encouraging for more adopters, more people to do what's necessary to wrap their arms around our students and our families, because we cannot do it alone. I'm grateful that we were able to be a beacon of hope during this time. I'm glad that the church was able to be a safe place at such a dangerous time. But my heart is heavy because we had to encounter this situation in the first place. So I ask that you continue to pray for one another, pray for this city and this nation, that gun violence ends up something of the past and not a continued problem in our future. Thank you.
So I want to thank everybody. Thank you to the entire team, board members, principal, again, her team, school nurse, counselors, parents for understanding. And most of all, to the young man that's recovering and his family. Let's keep them lifted in prayer. But this must stop. But as we say in Memphis Shelby County Schools, together we must believe. Together we will achieve. Together we're reimagining 901. Thank you all.
You've just been watching a joint news conference there at the Baptist Church located near Cummings K-8 school, which had quite a day today, unfortunately. The joint news conference headed not only by Shelby County Superintendent Joris Ray, you also had presence from the Memphis Police Force, the school board representatives were on hand, and even the clergy. So you got a real feeling of the community and what they've been through this past day. And of course, as that was going on, we were showing you the video of the evacuation of Cummings K-8 school. Imagine what that was like for those parents, a school that has kindergartners and first graders having to deal with some pretty grown-up stuff today. We did learn some important details. A 13-year-old who was shot is going to make a full recovery, is what we are told, and that the 13-year-old who's responsible for the shooting is in custody and will be charged with attempted first-degree murder. We also learned that the shooting happened in a stairwell. They're not saying much about the shooting other than that location. And we also learned that probably the most startling statistic we heard today was that more than 100 children in Memphis have been treated for gunshot wounds at Le Bonheur Children's Hospital. That from Dr. Barry Gilmore, who was at the news conference as well. But bottom line is that 13-year-old who was shot today, even though it's been a traumatic day, will be making a full recovery. Let's go live real quick because we're rapidly coming up on our newscast at 5 o'clock to ABC 24 reporter Brad Broders, who's been covering this story for us today. Your observations, Brad, after this lengthy news conference this afternoon.
Well, just certainly, as you mentioned, Richard, just now, I mean, the reality of what happened, what came to this neighborhood this morning. I mean, we're talking about a situation that is pretty rare, according to Assistant Chief Don Crow. And I earlier this afternoon, spoke with an SCS social worker. She's been in the district for 28 years, and she said she could not remember such a situation where social workers and trauma counselors were dealing with a situation where there was a shooting inside a school building during school hours. I don't care what part of the city you're talking about. This longtime employee with SCS said she never remembered anything of this magnitude, where we're talking about busing hundreds of children. Again, Richard, this is a K-8 school, so we're talking about hundreds of kids 5 to 14 years old. That SCS social worker said she expects that there will be follow-up counseling sessions, not just in the days ahead, but likely follow-up counseling session in the weeks ahead, Richard.
All right, thank you, Brad. We'll be seeing you tonight at 5 o'clock. As I mentioned, we're coming up rapidly on that newscast. Rudy Williams will be in the chair, and we'll have updates, of course, on abc24.com and on our social media channels. Meantime, we also have learned tonight that State Senator Katrina Robinson was found guilty just a short time ago of 4 counts in her federal fraud trial. We'll have the latest on that as well. For now, though, I'm Richard Ransom. This is